Welcome to the Higher Love with Megan podcast with me, your host, Megan Cooper, a trauma-informed therapist, life coach and disruptor of wellness norms based in Brighton, UK. This isn't another nice-to-have wellness podcast. Instead, this podcast seeks to redefine what it means to be well in today's world. Here, we challenge the status quo, seek to reunite wellness with social justice and improve accessibility, diversity and inclusivity within wellness and beyond. As a listener, you are not here to passively consume. Instead, you are an ambassador for real, embodied, societal and systemic change in the world. As your host, I stand for radical self-inquiry and being able to have those confronting but necessary conversations so that we can remember our collective humanity at this time. We're here for the revolution and you've got a front row seat.
I wanted to ask you how you feel motherhood has impacted your activism, especially in regards to what we've witnessed over the past 10 months.
So it's interesting, the word activism, because I would have used it myself and then I hear other people talking in ways like, you know, is it activism or is it humanism? Like and I like that because I'm like, I don't like, as someone who runs an online page, who runs a business from that page, and it's a motherhood page, I had no illusions about what would happen to that page when I started speaking up publicly against what was happening to the people of Palestine, in particular, the mothers and the children. So I think it was probably mid-October before I first posted, and I remember actually having a conversation with my husband because, you know, I was very aware that there will be consequences, and I feel devastated that there are any type of consequences, but I was no fool. I knew that there would be, so I spoke to my husband about it. Like, this is something that I cannot ignore. Like, I have to make it very clear. And again, it was a very personal decision, but I don't want anybody to be under any illusion, should they stumble upon my Instagram page, of where I stand on this. I wanted to be so clear. And my husband says, well, you created this page, so you decide where you go with it. Like, I fully support you in this, and let's see where the chips fall. And the worry over the decision was actually, like, the decision itself was very easy, and it has been very easy since then. It was more the thought of it and the fear of what I imagined I would lose, and the people that I would lose contact with, and the business opportunities that I would lose, etc. I entertained that too long instead of going with what my heart knew to be true for me. And when that decision was made and I acted on it, I haven't looked back since, because I cannot, and I imagine we'll never understand, the silence of anyone, but in particular, people and businesses that say that their work is in service of mothers. I cannot. Where are you? Where are your voices right now? Because I think the particular piece about the online platform is, and it goes back to what we spoke about earlier in regards to the polarization and the comment sections becoming minefields, about, you don't know what I'm doing offline. How dare you try and shame me for my lack of engagement online? And my response to that has been, I'm not trying to shame you. If you feel shamed, then that's something for you to consider. We live in the digital age. There is no hiding or getting away from the fact that our online footprint is huge, and also the access that we have to people. And I believe that regardless of the size of the page that you have, if you dare to say that you are running a community, or you're part of a community, you serve your community online, but you're not creating opportunities for discussion with your community, as has been said, then I believe that's morally wrong. And I question the community that has been built, because it clearly has been built on white supremacy, white privilege, and silence. Like, if we can't speak about subjects like this with their communities, then what kind of community is that? I don't know.
I'm interested how you see the wellness industry differently to perhaps how you did before.
Well, I suppose I would have to separate, like, what I would see is the faux wellness industry. because how can any wellness, any principle of wellness be built on the exclusion of demographics of people? That's not wellness. That's not wellness. That's selective privilege. That's, I'm going to sell things to and talk about things that are relatively safe. They're not uncomfortable for the people who are part of this community to receive, and therefore I will continue to be successful if we're going to measure it in metrics, like in regards to reach, visibility, etc. So I don't believe that's wellness. I believe that for a long time that we were all duped into thinking that. I think now what I'm realizing, and I'm glad of this, is that I divesting from these circles of predominantly, in my own experience has been, I'm based here in Ireland, predominantly white country. There's certainly, when I consider the circles that I have moved in and that I have wanted to be in, when I consider who's not been part of those conversations, who's not been in the room, like I cringe how willfully ignorant I have been. And it's at this point, I think, that people will message me privately to say that they're at, but they continue to do nothing about. So my issue with this wellness industry, therapists, coaches, gurus, spiritual practitioners, women's circles holders, doulas, midwives, all of these people, if I don't see any capacity whatsoever for a person to be able to engage in conversation at this level, then I don't trust that provider to be able to hold that space in person either. Because I don't think in this day and age we can separate them both. I don't believe that you can have a public business page that says nothing. And when people say, but I'm saying nothing because I know that the people who are coming to this page are coming for education and community, and I'm like, but what are you educating them on, and what community are you building if you're not having this opportunity to discuss with them? Because they're coming to that particular page, they're going to a person for a reason, and it's usually because you've established trust at this point. The person who's coming to your page for education and community trusts you. So is it not then an abuse of trust to not talk about this? I can't, and I won't accept the silence of many practitioners.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I've heard you speak to is this notion of shift work.
Yeah.
Because
yes.
I know that's come up for a lot of people that I know, and myself included, of, consuming a lot of what we've seen on our screens over the last 10 months, but also having the demands of our lives on top of that, and hitting these points where we deeply want to keep going and keep caring and keep sharing, keep showing up, but feeling some level of kind of depletion, but then the guilt and the shame that then comes in of that. And something that I've seen you speak to is this notion of shift work within our humanism. So could you just speak to that?
Of course. That was actually, I spoke about this before, and I acknowledged that I read that in a comment section of a post. It was on, and when you're in the online world, people's like Instagram pages. So it's mixing up motherhood.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes. And it was in the comment section of one of her posts, I think, like back in November, when I was reading, because I didn't come across that page until after October, when I started to see practitioners and people within the motherhood space speaking up about what was happening. And so I deeply resonated with all that she spoke about, and still do to this day. But in the comment sections of one of her posts, there was this chain of comments, and somebody said, ultimately, because I think they were addressing burnout and overwhelm and, that freeze response that was kicking in as a result of everything that was unfolding. So therefore I can do nothing, and I feel such guilt and shame about it. And the person commenting was saying, well, consider it like shift work. Now I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember now exactly what was said, but it's this idea of just like every type of shift, like in a company, in an organization where people clock in, they do the work and they clock off as others are clocking in. So we have this rotation. The work is always being done, but people go home, they clock off, they rest, they feed, and then they come back on. And the person that was talking about it was applying it to, long-term activism work, because for many of us who were relatively new to it, the sense of urgency, I have to do all the things, talk about all the things, share all the posts all the time. And immediately, within a very short space of time, we are burnt out and heartbroken and can't function. Whereas the idea to consider that I clock on, knowing that somewhere in the world, someone's clocking off right now. And soon it will be my time to clock off again. And I just thought that was a beautiful way to try and help myself reframe my role here.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's such a great insight for people that have been struggling within the area of how we regulate ourselves at this time and how we can show up. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you to the person who shared it in the first place.
Yeah, I know.
We see you. And just speaking to my own experience, of the last 10 months, and I discussed this with Lucy the other day, I feel like I constantly cycle between a whole range of emotions, the horror of what we're seeing, the anger that then shows up of this collective apathy towards that, my own then shifting into gratitude for what I have, the privileges that I get to experience, the guilt and the shame of my privilege within that, but then not wanting to squander everything that I do get to experience, so wanting to lean into the joy and then cycling back around again. It's almost like this kind of like 24-hour roller coaster of all of it happening all at the same time. And I'm curious how, with everything that we've witnessed within Palestine over the last 10 months, how does that show up in connection with you, with your kids, being a mother? Do you kind of, I guess with me having just shared what happens for me, what happens for you within motherhood, perhaps with your kids, bearing witness to what we see?
My kids, I would be, so in my local area here, I wanted to do like, I needed to do something outside of the big national process that happened like once a month here, although there are other things happening. So locally on a bridge here in my town, I go down every Friday morning from 7:30 till 8:30 with my Palestine flags. And I've been doing this now for about 3 months, I think. And people come and join me and we wave our flags. And anyway, so now in my kitchen, I have my flags and the kids are like that. Those are Mom's flags. So they've come down a few times as well with my husband, to stand on the bridge and then wave the flags. So they understand the significance in many aspects of what's happening through the lens of, they know they're, as a family, when there is a march on, they'll either come with me or the priority is I get to go in or the bridge. So they understand the significance without fully understanding what's actually happening, because obviously we speak about it in a very age appropriate way in regards to the occupation, and as well here in Ireland, the historical situation is as well, like the children understand a little bit about the history of Ireland and also occupation, colonial powers. So when we talk a little bit about it in reference to Palestine, they get it a little bit. But how it has affected me in motherhood is that there are moments of absolute joy when I witness them blowing bubbles or climbing. And like what you were saying, that cycle of, and usually in those moments when I consider what's happening elsewhere in the world right now and why it's being allowed to happen, why people are speaking up more about it, the joy and the awe and the love is what transmutes into mother rage, like absolute rage against the machine that has to be channeled and it has to be directed somewhere, because if not, it would destroy us from the inside out. And I think that is what leads to the intensity of the writing. It leads to the absolute certainty that there is no grey area here, not in a genocide. There cannot be. There is no grey area. And so for me, that's very clear. And right now, and maybe in years to come, when I look back on what I have written recently and how I stand and how I speak now, perhaps there may be regrets about how I worded things, but there will be no regrets about where I stand. And I feel that's very important for me and for my children. I want them to see that we have to take a stand sometimes. We absolutely have to. And we have to just suffer the consequences. Let it be what happens, is like whatever happens as a result of that, trust that there will be people around you who stand with you. And I think that's what I hope they see from this.
What would you love to see within motherhood, within humanism, and how would you love everyone to be a part of that?
What I would love to see is what I'm bringing, because I'm trying to be, be the change that you want to see in the world. So yeah. I'm so, my own understanding of what I offer, how I offer it, the people that I can help is changing and has changed over the last while. So what I want to see is access for all mothers who want it to be able to get it. I think we, particularly as people who work in the motherhood sphere or in that arena, there is this idea of, the more expensive your services, the better you are. And perhaps many years ago, Megan, I would have bought into that idea that you have to be so expensive because that's what tells people you're good at what you do. And I believed it, and I probably aimed at that for a while. That was my motivation, was to charge as much as I possibly could and be so exclusive. And now, I cringe a little bit in the inside at how much I really fell for that. As opposed to now, what I would love to see is more and more mothers being offered seats at the table so that we can all sit down together and we can make it accessible and we can begin to lead with community care. And we can, as a result of that, then each of us can take off our own cloaks of silence so that we can show our shame. Because the ripple effect of that in our families and behind our closed doors, and therefore in our children's adult lives as well, that can't be measured by euro, pounds, or how much it costs to work with somebody an hour. All of that, let it burn, and let everybody who wants access to conversation and support have it.
Amazing. Well, I'm so grateful and thankful that you are in this space doing what you do, Jacqueline. So thank you so much for your time today, Jacqueline. It's been amazing to share space with you. So yeah, big thank you.
Oh, thanks, Megan. I loved it.
Thank you for listening. It's great to have you with me on this journey towards higher love for all. Our time is our greatest commodity and gift, so thanks for investing it in yourself and sharing it with me. Please do take a moment to rate and review the show, all of which enables more people to find me and for me to connect with more great guests each week for both yours and my enjoyment. All links, references and contact information is detailed too within the show notes. And I always love to hear your feedback, so feel free to hit me up on my Instagram at higherlove_with_Megan or via my website higher-love.com. Send your takeaways, and if you enjoyed this episode, please share or send on to someone else who would benefit. Until next time, big love.